Hello and welcome. So first and foremost, I just want to put a disclaimer out. In this video, I will be critiquing and going over another channel's content. And with that, it'll be solely based on my own personal opinion and experience. I am not a professional. This will be critiqued under the Fair Play, Fair Use Act. And this is for entertainment purposes only. So with that, let's get into the video.
Just stop. A flashlight takes a hand you need for something else, and after 72 hours of darkness, that hand matters more. Let that land. Most families prepping for a week without power buy the wrong 9 items and spend triple what they need. What saves a family isn't a kit. It's 9 Walmart items, most under $6. One sits in the pool aisle, and it's the most overlooked item in American preparedness.
I'm just going to state something really quick here. This item that they actually talk about is actually the most dangerous item that a person can acquire, especially when they don't know how to properly utilize it. Also, at the beginning of the video, they say to quit buying flashlights. You don't need a ton of flashlights, but it's going to have backup ones. But their alternative is not better than a flashlight. I will say that right now. And I'll give descriptions as to why.
I'll tell you which one halfway through. Under $100 total. Item 1, a 2-pack of LED headlamps. Hardware aisle, roughly $12. The civilian mistake is grabbing a single flashlight and calling it done. The prepared buyer grabs headlamps because both hands stay free. For cooking, for splinting, for carrying a child through a dark hallway. A decent
Okay. This is where there's an issue. Yes, it frees up your hands. That's common sense. So they're great for tinkering with. I can't deny that. There's usually a way you can secure a flashlight or even just an area lamp that you can set on the floor. Another trick with a flashlight is to, if it's really unstable and you need a little bit of just illuminating light in the room, what you do is you just put it in a can, stuff it with some clothing or whatnot so it stays in place, and just shine it off the top. If you can find a mirror or some kind of reflective surface, it works even better, obviously. So headlamps are handy, but they're not the best go-to. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up regarding carrying a child through a hallway, I guess if you're familiar with the hallway and it's all good, that's great. But one thing that's problematic with headlamps is that they actually don't provide that far of a reach. Cheap flashlights don't either. But with a flashlight, you have better depth perception. That's a huge factor, especially when it comes to seeing shadows and whatnot. Like when people get CIA or FBI training, one thing that is very important when going into like dark buildings and whatnot, and ironically, it's not just in the movies. Apparently, there are situations where criminals like to hide contraband or have a hangout in the basement of an old abandoned warehouse that's owned by somebody and no one really pays attention to. And there's a lot of debris in the air. And not only that, but there's a lot of tripping hazards. And what they're trained to do essentially is scan the floor going up. With a headlamp, you don't really have that option. You can look down, but it's not going to really provide you with really good depth perception to shine into shadows and to see stepping hazards. And that's a real thing. You do not want to lose your footing in a serious situation. Beyond that too, headlamps, another thing CIA and FBI agents are taught to do is when cutting around a corner, you actually shine your light first. Because if there's anyone waiting with a gun, they'll fire at the light, right? So it creates a false center target. Now, if you walk around the corner with a headlamp, oh my goodness, and say these criminals are fairly trained with their firearm, you have a perfect target right between your eyes. It's not safe whatsoever. Just saying, if you were in a situation where, as they say, SHTF, right? So.
lamp runs 40 hours on 3 AAA batteries. 40 hours. That's 5 nights of usable light for
There's lots of LED lights that provide that. But a hard truth is I'd get a really high quality, strong beam flashlight and just an area lamp. Like I said, it's great for tinkering. Yeah, it is, but it's not hard to set up a flashlight in a good position either.
per hour. It illuminates a repair, a wound, a map, a route. One item, 4 functions, both hands-free. Do the math on that versus a $10 flashlight. Running total, $12.
When it comes to your safety and preparedness, worrying about your budget and money should be the last thing. Like, yes, you don't want to overspend. You have to be reasonable and live healthy and properly. But keep in mind, buying the cheap stuff at the same time might not always be the best option either if it begins to malfunction, right? So,
Item 2.
and like he said, keep in mind, if you have to work in the dark, he says don't buy a bunch of flashlights. Well, the hard truth is, if you have backups, then you also have safety in that net, right?
A 4-pack of 1-pound propane canisters.
But I don't recommend being the flashlight man and having like 10 taped to your shins and forearms. Just a few backup is a good idea.
Camping aisle, about $16. Most shoppers see these and think weekend camping. Prepared people see cooking, boiling, and supplemental heat for a week when the stove goes cold. Each canister burns roughly 2 hours on a portable stove. 8 hours of hot meals from $16. Let that land. During the Texas winter storm of 2021, families with portable propane stoves ate hot food. Families with
Okay, there's an issue with that. If you ever cook with propane and whatnot, a lot of people in that Texas situation also got carbon monoxide poisoning just because whether it was trying to stay warm in their vehicles and whatnot. Sadly, a lot of people didn't know to, ventilate the area adequately, and it did become a real problem. So, yes, it's a handy thing, but you have to stay ventilated. You have to do it in the right area, obviously.
out them, opened cold cans in 30-degree kitchens. Pair it with a single burner stove for $20 and you have kitchen independence. Running total, $28. Item 3. A manual can opener and a case of dense canned proteins. Kitchen aisle and canned goods aisle. $4 for the opener, about $25 for a week of cans. Most people...
What I would substitute for the propane and such is like, yes, it's great. Same with any kind of, you can get a lot of camping, kerosene little stovetops, and they work for a while. They're adequate. They're a good option. But if you can get barbecue charcoal and whatnot and light that up, that works for a very long time as well. And it might be a little bit safer. Just, you still need ventilation, obviously, but there's scenarios and tricks as to making it work. Now, I'm going to get into this part. He mentioned something that's really odd here.
Stock pasta and rice they can't cook. The prepared buyer stocks canned chicken, chili, beans, and evaporated milk.
Okay, it's not a bad idea. And going too heavy on protein, through a short run isn't your biggest concern necessarily. You're going to go a lot farther with carbohydrates. That's just a really hard truth. You do need protein, and it'd be great if you could get the whole nutritional circle in there, obviously, but there's a danger with this. So ironically, he's saying that you're not going to be able to cook pasta and rice adequately, but he's talking about the propane kitchen and all that. But there's a hidden danger when it comes to eating too much canned food that any sailor will tell you. Yes, you definitely want a bit of canned food. You need protein, and it's best to focus on proteins with canned food, obviously. But it's the dehydration risk, and I'm quite serious. Any kind of canned food is just completely loaded with salt, and you do need salt too. But in a dire situation where you're not getting out much and you have limited water, this is a terrible idea. Stick to your pasta and rice, because not only that, but when you cook it in the water, you don't have to drain the water, and hydration is your number one. You do not want to get over dehydrated. So the focus on too much canned food is not a good idea.
Foods that open and eat with no water, no flame, no prep.
the water. Evaporated milk, okay, you can consume evaporated milk to an extent, just like protein powder by itself, but it's dangerous. It's chalky stuff. It's obviously a lot better with water. If you're really looking at straight protein, you know, in the dried form and such, cooking dried beans is an option. You don't have to get them canned. And there's many other options as well. Obviously, you do need your vitamin B12. That's primarily through meat. But there's a lot of options out there. That's why a lot of people actually say to stock up on vitamin B12 more than anything. If you're stuck in the middle of a city and you can't really go out, you know, catching wild game and such. And ironically, actually, in some cities you almost can now, I guess, if you're into pigeons and rats. But I'm saying that in a literal sense. But please don't catch the pigeons and rats. That's not sanitary. But yeah, be careful of the canned food. That's your...
Aim for 2,000 calories per person per day. For a family of 4, that's 56,000 calories.
Okay, in a family of 4, like, you gotta think about how many cans that's gonna be at the same time. Yes, if you're bunked into your house and such, that's great. Yes, have some canned food. I will not say don't get canned food. But relying on it solely, that's gonna... If you're eating nothing but canned food, that's gonna require so much water. Do not... Like he told you not to focus on pasta and rice. Focus on pasta and rice. Like, that is dense carbohydrates with fiber, especially pasta.
For 7 days. A $25 case closes most of that gap. Running total, $57. 3 items in, $57 spent. Light, heat, calories. That's the spine of surviving a week without power. Item 4. 2 5-gallon food-grade buckets with sealing lids. Paint aisle or garden section. Roughly $6 each, 12 total. The civilian mistake is thinking of these as storage only. The prepared buyer sees water hauling, waste containment, food-grade grain storage, and an improvised stool when the power's been out 5 days and everyone's exhausted. During Hurricane Harvey, 5-gallon buckets became the most traded item in flooded neighborhoods. They carried clean water in, they carried waste out. That's not theory. That's documented. 1 item, 4 functions, $12. Run.
It's 1 item, but you never want to use it for 4 functions. One thing I will say, yes, buckets and bags are very handy to, you know, move stuff around. It's historical evidence. People figured out ways to collect small items, and especially liquid, and mobilize it. But one thing I will say is that he forgets to mention is if you do use buckets for waste and water, you never use the same bucket for both. Obviously, that's common sense for a lot of people, but I mean this seriously. A lot of plastic buckets, especially cheap ones at Walmart, will be actually fairly porous. They'll say that they're made out of good grade material and this and that, but even if you wash them, like, there's a huge risk that a lot of viruses and other bad stuff will still stick on them. And if you start drinking and hauling good water with them, you can get very, very sick. It's very dangerous. If you're gonna haul water with a bucket, just haul water with it. Keep your waste bucket. I can't say that enough, because you might clean it with soap and water thinking it's perfectly fine, but the hard truth is there's some tough little bugs out there, and once they get a chance to start multiplying in warm water, they thrive. So keep a bucket to what it's designed for. I thought I'd just put that out there.
In total, $69. Item 5. Remember the item I teased at the top? The one in the pool chemical aisle? This is the one I've been holding. A 1-pound bag of calcium hypochlorite pool shock. $4.
Okay, this is pool shock. We need to keep this in mind. This is the item I'm also talking about. It's ironic that he's talking about this being a savior for all things, but unless you really understand your chemistry and stuff, this is very dangerous, and you're much better off boiling your water.
Read that label again. 68% calcium hypochlorite, granular, unstabilized. That exact chemical, at that exact concentration, is the basis of every municipal water treatment plant in the country. 1 single pound treats up to 10,000 gallons of contaminated water when dosed correctly. Let that land. 10,000 gallons.
It sounds very impressive, but this is a dangerous gambit. Like I said, unless you understand what you're doing, you're going to actually poison yourself very, very easily. I won't get too deep into the science and research of it, but just simply Google it. It's there. Or if you know a water treatment guy, ask him if it's a good idea to start putting teaspoons into your wastewater, because you have to know what you're doing, to the point where if you add too much, you're poisoning yourself. We're talking just milligrams. If you put too many milligrams of this into the water, you're getting poisoned. And if you don't put enough, that water will still get you sick. It's a very finicky thing. You almost need a microscope to know what you're dealing with. You need to know it's complex. So to worry about carrying this stuff around, in my opinion, you're better off with something that's flammable. And like I said, getting your water to a rolling boil and filtering it through cloth. That will literally be safer most of the time than this stuff.
From $4. After Hurricane Katrina, families with pool shock purified their own water within 48 hours. Families without it lined up for trucks that took days.
That's look into that. That's debatable. And not only that, but he's not saying the bad part about what happened with that either. It's I don't know a single prepper that's concerned about pool shock. Please do your own research regarding this.
The ones who understood chemistry survived the first week calmly. The ones who didn't rationed bottled water until panic set in. Running total, $73. Item 6. A 20-pound bag of basic clay kitty litter. Pet aisle, around $7. Untrained eyes see cats. Trained eyes see a no-flush toilet solution for a family of 4. When municipal water...
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I won't judge this too much, but kitty litter is not the ideal solution when it comes to human waste. It creates a ton of weight and a ton of work. My guess would be that when things really hit the fan, there's still going to be areas and options for people to utilize their digging utensils and gardening equipment, in my personal opinion. So what I mean by that, obviously, is when things get really bad and the water doesn't run anymore, there's usually options around it. But please do your own research into it to understand it more in depth.
Pressure drops, and it does drop in a 7-day outage. Toilets stop flushing. Waste piles up in hours. Disease follows by day 3. 2 inches of clay litter in a 5-gallon bucket with a trash bag, and you have a sealed, odor-controlled sanitation station. It also absorbs fuel spills and adds traction to icy driveways. 3 functions, $7. Running total, $80. 3 items left, $80.
Historically, I don't know a single prepper that has ever, put kitty litter on their criteria for listing. It's just there's a lot of other solutions and ideas. Even I won't mention them here, but there's more direct flushing methods into a sewer, because we have to keep in mind most sewers are still connected to storm drains and whatnot, so there's quite a bit of water always on the move there. And as long as you have an option for getting it into that system, it'll take care of itself. Sewer systems are actually very sturdy, little gravity handy, I guess, utilities. They're very independent. Yes, it does require some water, but to start worrying about cat litter and trying to move it around is probably unnecessary.
The final shelf is where most shoppers have already gone home. Stay with me. Item 7. A roll of heavy-duty aluminum foil. Kitchen aisle. About $6 for 150 square feet. Most shoppers see a turkey wrapper. Prepared people see a Faraday shield, a cooking surface, a reflective heat barrier, and a window insulator. Tape foil over a south-facing window, and you double the solar warmth of an unpowered room. Wrap a small radio.
Okay, I gotta listen to that again. Oh, Jesus.
Tape foil over a south-facing window, and you double the solar warmth of an unpowered room. Wrap a small radio in 3...
Okay, that's insane. Insanity. He just said cover a south-facing window with tinfoil. Now, most people will understand how absolutely insane this is. He just said it'll double the warmth. No. Taping a south-facing window with foil will completely block all sunlight. Even in the midwinter, if you can have natural radiating sunlight coming in through the south window, that will heat a room much better than taping it up. There's actually people out there in the summertime here in Canada where if they want to keep the room cooler, they tape and block out the south-facing window. And so it's complete madness to tape it up. Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense.
3 layers of foil inside a cardboard box, and you have a cheap Faraday cage against a grid surge. It also patches broken pots, lines makeshift ovens, and signals rescue from a roof. 1 item, 5 functions, $6.
That's not bad advice to an extent, I suppose. Like those are fair uses, and yeah, tinfoil will block radio frequency. A lot of people don't know that. I could say something from anarchist's cookbook here, but I'll state it anyways. Please, nobody commit a crime. A lot of professional thieves, what they'll do is if they go into a place that say has the magnetic dingers and whatnot, is they'll actually make a compartment in a purse or a jacket that's completely really heavily wrapped in aluminum foil, and that way it'll actually block out the magnetic tapping or whatever, the signal, so that it goes off.
Running total, $86. Item 8. A box of 20 disposable hand warmers, sporting goods or seasonal aisle, about $12. The civilian mistake is thinking these are for hunters. The prepared buyer knows each packet delivers 10 hours of 95-degree heat from iron and salt. Tape.
Yeah, they're definitely for outdoorsmen. Oh boy, here we're getting into a really interesting tip here.
2 to a child's chest inside their coat, and they sleep warm through a power.
Okay, so if we do the math as to how hot he said they'll get, 90 degrees Fahrenheit and such, some can get very hot. I like how the child's sleeping in a room with broken windows there. They can actually burn children. Like, yeah, do not tape them to a child's jacket. There's other ways. Obviously, wrapping them in a blanket and having multiple layers, that's a lot safer and better. But do not tape them to a child's jacket. That could literally burn them. Like I have experienced what it's like to have these warmers in your little your mitts and stuff, and they can get very hot. You definitely want a barrier there. So to tape them to your child is kind of dangerous. He means well. It's a good idea and all, but at the same time, you gotta be careful with them, especially with children. Jeez.
Out night. Tuck one against a cold battery, and you extend its voltage. Slip one in.
Okay, if you put it next to a battery, if it's really cold out, that won't do too much. Now, like I said, if you wrap it in a blanket, or especially if you utilize that aluminum foil traps heat very well. That's gonna do a better job.
Inside a sleeping bag before bed, and you reclaim hours of core warmth. During the 2003 Northeast blackout, Hand warmers were among the first to thin out of Walmart's seasonal aisle. 3 functions, 10 hours each.
In all honesty, like if you just dress in layers and dress appropriately for the cold weather, you can be okay. Like we have to remember that a lot of people's ancestors from the Nordic to Native American did just fine with this dressing appropriately.
Running total, $98. Item 9. A tub of petroleum jelly and a bag of cotton balls. Pharmacy aisle, under $5 for both. Most people see lip balm and makeup removal.
All right, I can admit there's always a gray area, and a broken clock can be right, twice a day, as they say. This is some pretty fair advice. The petroleum jelly and the cotton ball thing here.
Prepared people see the cheapest waterproof fire starter in American retail. Roll a cotton ball in petroleum jelly, and it burns at nearly 500 degrees for up to 7 minutes in wind, rain, or snow. 7 minutes. That's enough to light damp wood when nothing else will.
That is a pretty good trick. And actually, believe it or not, really, well, I guess corn chip snacks or whatever, any kind of chip made out of corn and grease and whatnot, that burns incredibly well as well. It makes for great tinder and a fire starter.
Combat medics learned this decades ago as a skin barrier, a blister prevention layer, and a lubricant for stuck zippers. One $5 pair, 4 functions, and fire you can trust on day 6 of an outage. Running total, $103. 9 items, $103. Light, water, fire. That's the spine of a 7-day power outage. Priced below what most people spend on a single panic trip to Costco after the forecast breaks. You're not shopping panic. You're shopping the plan. You walked in knowing products. You walked out knowing functions. Don't buy this tomorrow. Spread it across 3 calm weekends. 1 labeled bin in the garage. Rotate the batteries, the pool shock, and the canned goods twice a year. Write it on the calendar.
I'm just gonna suggest, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a professional. This is for entertainment purposes only. But regarding a real power outage situation and such, don't be afraid to look at other sources and question them. That's for darn sure. There's a lot of books written by good professionals, and that's what I'd say would be the best go-to. YouTube is great sometimes, but as we can see, avoiding a publisher and such, and when you're not sure if it's a professional making the content, be very wary of it. Your best source for information will always be a library. The cards are free, and you have access to amazing information. But with that, take care of yourself and stay safe. Thank you. Bye.